Hi friends, welcome back to your channel. Sales is always fun. We as a customer, our brain is wired in such a way that we like to buy things. But the catch is we would not like to be sold to. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'll give you a simple example. What happened a week back with my friend. Me and my friend went to a restaurant which we go regularly. The person who came to serve us was also somebody whom we know for a long time. He just suddenly walked up and told us, "Today you have ABC tiffin." I was just looking at him and my friend got wild. He said, "How dare you decide what I want? Let me decide what I want." We went to have tiffin, but then since that person pushed for a sudden tiffin, my friend reacted back, which means that he didn't like being sold to. Of course, he was justifying, saying that many customers today have liked the tiffin, they've given a positive feedback, that's why I wanted you to try it out. So this is the human nature, and this is where we in sales profession have a catch. Because we know the customer can buy it, we try to push a little hard and the customer steps back. Now, let's look at it slightly differently. What does the customer expect from us? He expects us to be empathetic and competent. That's all the customer wants us to be. So to be competent, yes, you need to know your product and your services extremely well. But how about being empathetic? To be empathetic is to listen to your customer in full. What do I mean by that is listen to him being non-judgmental. Listen very carefully. So normally what happens is you can lean a little forward. Every now and then you can say some yes, ha. And at the end of the statement or end of what he speaks, you can always test and understand. Ask him, if I am not mistaken, is this not what you are trying to tell me? So this means the customer knows that yes, he is serious about my requirement. He is serious about what I have to say. Like Stephen Covey said in his 7 Habits, understand to be understood. So first understand the customer. If he knows that you are willing to understand him, he will be willing to absorb what you tell him. The customer has no objection to you asking him questions. This is a doubt that many sales professionals have. Because they say, I should go say what I have to say and then ask for the order. But the customer wants you to know what he wants and then give him a solution. For you to know what he wants, you need to ask him questions. And customers are only happy to answer. I'll give you a classic example. My NLP guru, he buys a particular brand of laptop. And anytime he buys for him, for his family or friends, he travels 10 kilometers to a specific showroom to buy the particular brand of laptop. And on the way, the same brand has got 3 other showrooms. So I once asked him casually, why do you travel this long? He said, my first experience with these 2 shops were bad. When I walked in, they tried to sell me a model which they had to sell. It is only in this shop when I went, the salesman asked me what I want, why I want, what is my usage, and then he suggested me a model. So since then, whenever I am buying a laptop for me or for somebody else, I take them only to this shop. So this means that the customers are willing to answer your questions. So it is up to you to ask the questions. Now, how do I ask question is also an art by itself. Because you got to sound inquisitive and you got to sound not aggressive enough. You got to sound normal, very inquisitive. Ask the customer, the tone of your voice does matter, and how you position yourself, the volume of your sound also matters. But when you put it right, the customer is more than happy to answer you the questions that you ask him. Well, we will now get into the spin selling, which is basically asking questions. This spin selling is of course a registered trademark of Neil Rekman. Neil Rekman and his team had worked for 10 plus years, close to 12 years. They had worked in about 20 plus countries and they had studied 35,000 sales calls by very successful sales professionals. Based on this, such a detailed study, they came out with this concept of spin selling. 1988, if I'm not mistaken, the book came and it was an instant success. Most people in B2B sale would have this book, and I recommend that you please pick up a copy. It's a very interesting book to have. In fact, the very first edition, the book was launched. They were looking at 3,000 copies, but they sold out 15,000 copies at the very launch. So that's with respect to the history of the book and the launch. Well, coming back to spin selling, SPIN. S stands for situation, P for problem, I for implication, and N for need, pay, off. Situation questions. In the situation, you will ask about the current status, that is the as is status. In the problem questions, you will ask the problems that the customer are facing during this because of the as is situation. And average salesman, probably sales professional, once he comes to the problem, he immediately jumps to offer his product or solution. But successful salespeople have been found to actually look at the implications because of these problems. Show the customers the implications. Like, you have this problem, yes, so what is the kind of implication that they are going to have? What is the kind of loss of productivity they have? What is the loss of money they have? So successful salespeople probably will ask very little of situation questions, because situation questions, before you go to the man, you would gain it from the various sources you have within the organization. He would ask more problem questions than the situation questions with the man, and more implication questions. And then once the customer is aware that yes, I have this problem, this is what it is, and then you have the need payoff. Well, will it be good if you have these? Once the customer says yes, and then you can now offer your product or service to the customer. So this is spin in short. Now let's take a situation where you are selling the print managed service. So let's take spin selling to print managed services. Let's look at the situation questions which you can ask the customer. These are just guidelines. You can frame it and choose the way you want it when you are in front of the customer, depending on the customer. Situation questions in this will be, have you provided a printer to all the departments? The next question can be, can you help me with brand wise, model wise printers that you are using at present? The next situation question can be, how many different kinds of cartridges are you buying per month? In all, how many cartridges are you buying every month? Who takes care of the AMC renewals? The other question can be, what is your purchase process? How long does it take to place an order for a supplies or paper? So these are some of the situation questions which you can ask. Next, we move on to the problem questions. The next problem question can be, dear customer, how difficult is it to manage the AMCs for different printers? Because each printer will have an AMC finishing about different time, and the rates would vary from printer to printer. How much time is actually lost in placing frequently orders for supplies and papers and spares? And how much time is also lost in keeping track of these supplies and the kind of space that it occupies? And another question which is definitely to be asked is, how much are you spending every month on cartridges? And also can be cartridges or ink. And also you need to ask how many sheets of paper you are buying every month. This can of course come in the situation question also, because this will let you know clearly as to how much of prints are they doing every month. Now that you know they're having problems in doing all this, don't go ahead and offer your solution. So let's look at the implications because of these problems. The implications questions can be, are you losing money as you have no control on the number of prints being taken? That's one implication question you can ask. And you can also ask, how is the productivity of employees impacted because of this daily or routinely placing orders for supplies, papers, spares, etc., etc. And also, somebody has to be there maintaining these stocks and keep it in a proper place, store it. So what kind of losses are you having because of all this? The time loss of your employees. And the other implication question can be, sir, now that your printers are slow, how much of productive time of your employees are actually wasted when they give bulk printing? And another question you can ask is, sir, buying printers every now and then, how is it impacting your overall capex situation for the departments? So these are some of the implication questions that you can ask. Now let's move on to the need payoff question. One question that you can ask is, would it help if I give you only one bill every month, which takes care of your spares, supplies, consumables, papers, and everything is taken care of with just one bill every month? Would it help if you can have a control on the number of prints being taken? In other words, you can also ask, would it help if you can align the number of prints that each user can take or each department can take on using automatic back-to-back printing? Our research says that we gain 30% of papers. How did that help you? And another need payoff question can be, how would you like if I can reduce your overall cost by 20%? It is only after this that you move to the next stage of showing how exactly you give it. What are the advantages that the customer will get by going for print managed services? So this is, in short, a take on SPIN for print managed services. Yes, this is just a guideline. You can rephrase, rework the way you want it depending on the kind of your customer. That your room for objections is more or less taken care of. There would be no room. You have probably answered what the customer is going to ask you before itself. So the customer is happy and closure becomes very easy because the customer realizes, yes, this is my saving, I need this for this purpose. So closure also becomes easier. That is why the SPIN has become so effective in the marketplace. Implementing of SPIN, yes, takes some time because you need to be very clear what is the situation question, what is the problem, implication, need payoff. You need to be very clear to the kind of industry that you are addressing, to your kind of product or service. All these needs to be taken into account before you actually go in for implementing the SPIN solution. Now Neil Rekman in his book also says there are 4 basic stages in every sale. They are the opening or the introduction stage. The second stage is the investigating stage, or which is called as the discovery stage. Third is the demonstration stage, and fourth is obtaining commitment, is the commitment stage. The opening stage, which is also called as introduction stage, is where you first meet your customer. And yes, in large deals or in a small deal, the first meeting does play, research after research says that it does play a big role. So you can also look back into our previous episode where I talk of first impression. Well, all said and done, you got to be dressed comfortably and which is acceptable to the customer. That's how you go in, and many salespeople do make a mistake here. They think the first call itself, they need to go break the ice, build a rapport. And what happens is invariably we start asking the buyer as to some personal questions as to where is he from, how big is his family, and all that, this in view to build rapport. Now just imagine yourself, put yourself in the buyer's shoe. Say you are a buyer in an organization, you meet about 50 people every day, and say about 10-15 of them are new, and if they are going to ask me the same question, do you think I'll be happy answering it? No, right? So let's not try to do that. In fact, on rapport building, there would be an episode coming very soon. You may please press the subscription and the bell button so that you would be notified when the episode is up. So now coming back. So here you meet the customer, you try to know what is where, and how, who's who, what, where. Because we have already seen in the previous episode what kind of questions that we need to ask the previous episode which was on prospecting. So you know how to begin and you can start with that, and that should help you take through. Next is the investigation stage or the discovery stage, where you try to find out the asset situation, and then you also ask as many problem questions as possible. Because like I said earlier, a successful sales professional asks more problem questions than the situation questions. So once you have gone into that stage of getting into taking the customer through this, and then you get into the process of where you demonstrate your capabilities, where you give a POC or you give a demo, you actually have the customer maybe experience your product or service that you are offering. Here Neil Druckmann also talks of FAB: feature, advantage and benefit. Now a feature works well if you are doing a low value sale, but for a high value sale, benefit is definitely need to be sold. Now feature and advantage, yes, low value sale, and benefits. Now what is this feature, advantage, benefit? Now let's look at a duplex feature in a printer. Now duplex printing is a feature. The advantage is simple, it prints back to back. Now what does it mean to the customer? The benefit: one, it saves him a lot of time, it saves paper, it saves a lot of productivity. So that's the benefit. So that when you tell the customer, to the purchase authority, that my printer can help you save paper by 30% and also save the time the person spends in front of the printer, he understands that better than if you tell him my printer has got a duplex unit. When you are talking to your customer, please ensure that you speak more about the benefits. Well, the next what we move is to the commitment stage. So Mr. Neil Druckmann says there are 4 components to a commitment, or 4 kinds of commitment calls that you can have, the final phase of it. One is advance. In the advanced stage, you are looking at how you can take what you have in your next call, what is to be done, how we move it forward, whether you are taken to the man, to the decision maker, or you are going to meet the purchase manager, depends. So you are actually you are deciding on this call what the next step will be. Next is the continuation, where things are probably not moving well, where you want a certain movement but the customer has got a difference of opinion. So that's where the continuation is not happening there. So you need to sit back and rework on that. The third is the best, which is the order. So you agree that the next step is to place the order and what is required, the groundwork for placing the order. And the last part of the commitment, which is the no sale part, where the customer upfront tells you, no, this is not what we are going for, or you realize also that this is not what the customer is looking forward to. Well, that's the spin selling in short. In the next episode, we will be talking of account management process, because I have got a couple of mails saying that you had spoken of account management, but can you talk to us about what account management is? So the next episode would be on account management process. Well, I remind you again, press the subscription button and the bell button so that you will be notified when the next episode is up in the air. Thank you. Till we meet again, happy selling.